The Old Dominion Monarchs went bowling in 2023, and they're looking to replicate that result here in 2024. But as it feels like it happens every year with this Old Dominion team, another mass exodus of players have either graduated or have left through the transfer portal, and Old Dominion's going to have to be replacing a lot of talent that it lost from last season. But despite that happening last season as well, Old Dominion still was able to push their way into a bowl game. Can they do the same thing here in 2024 under Ricky Rain? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel. I also want to welcome you here to prediction season, or back to prediction season. We're near the end of prediction season. And hey, look, if I still somehow have not done your favorite team, you want to make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell, especially if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, because you're going to want to hear what I have to say during the college football season. Thank you so much for watching this video and all of my other videos this summer. Continue to like, comment, share, interact with the channel in any way you can. It all helps support what I do here on YouTube, and I really appreciate everything that you guys do for me and for this channel. Just thank you guys so much. I can't say it enough, but you aren't here to listen to me. Thank you, guys. You're here to listen to me talk about Old Dominion football, which we'll dive into right now. We'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Old Dominion football schedule and give it a good old game-by-game preview and prediction. But before we do that, I got to tell you a couple more things, because right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for all of your fine people's viewing pleasure out there, right down there below the team's logo, I have went ahead and put the team's coaching staff, again, either offensively or defensively. We start out with the offense from a season ago, and in a lot of ways, you could definitely see it improve here in 2024, but it did enough to help this football team win games, and you are losing the quarterback out of the room from last season. Jack Shields is off through the transfer portal, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks on 53% completion percentage last season. Again, was not the primary starter, but still a notable loss in this quarterback room nonetheless. Your primary starter does return by the name of Grant Wilson, 2,149 yards, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on 57% completion percentage. And all of those stats, solid. Solid numbers from Grant Wilson. You probably want to see them improve this season, and maybe you give him a couple more reps here this season in 2024. Maybe he threw 312 passes last season. Maybe this year he throws 350. Maybe he can get 2,500 yards, maybe 20 touchdowns, the 8 interceptions. Obviously, you want to see him cut back on that, but that is not an atrocious number by any means at all. That's actually a pretty darn solid number there. Again, you obviously want to see it get lower, and you want to see Grant Wilson's production increase if possible, but at very least, you're going to get solid quarterback play out of Grant Wilson this season, and his new backup is going to be a former Boston College Golden Eagle. He is coming over there. His name is Emmett Moorhead. Was kind of that figured starter a couple years ago, and then Thomas Castellanos came in, really lit the Boston College system on fire. He's the starting quarterback over there. Emmett Moorhead said there's no place for me here, and he is transferred over to Old Dominion, where I think he's going to try to battle it out with Grant Wilson for that starting job. Now, do I think he wins it? No, I think Grant Wilson is still going to get that starting role. But Emmett Moorhead is coming over here with that power 4 level of experience and can definitely help out this offense in some ways if he does end up playing. Now, not only does Grant Wilson have a pretty solid arm, and you're going to get good production from him there, while he doesn't run super effectively, I was going to say a whole ton, but that would have been a complete lie. He led the team in carries last year, had 130 carries, 291 yards, and 4 touchdowns last season, but that is including sack yardage, and we'll talk about that more here in just a little bit once we get down to the offensive line. But let me tell you what the quarterback position, what Grant Wilson is going to have surrounding him in his offense this season. Well, out of the running back room, the transfer portal hit you hard. Your leading rusher, Kadarius Callaway, your second leading rusher, Keyshawn Wicks, and your fourth leading rusher, because Grant Wilson was the third leading rusher last year, and Obi Sani, are all off through the portal. Callaway, 623 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7.1 yards per carry. Wicks, 589 yards, 4 touchdowns in 120 carries, right around 5 yards per carry. And then Sonny last year, 4.4 yards per carry, 248 yards and a touchdown for him last season. All 3 of those guys, really solid contributors, and all will be missed here in this running back room for Old Dominion. Now, look, I've said this before. I said in my intro, I said it here, and I'll say it again. The transfer portal hit this team hard, and you're going to continue to find that out through this video. But they really were able to supplement pretty well in a lot of positions through the transfer portal in their own right. Running back room, well, you do get Tariq Sims and Devin Roche back, but your lead rusher is probably going to be Aaron Young, a Rutgers transfer, and Bryce Duke, who is transferring over from a Power 4 program as well. He's a Virginia Tech transfer, so you're getting some really talented transfers coming in here, and we'll see what level of production they're able to give this offense this year. You likely will see all four guys touch the football out of the backfield for the Monarchs this season. Wide receiver room, again, continuing to hit it hard here in the transfer portal. Raymelo Murphy's now with the Arizona Wildcats. Javon Harvey is now over with the Duke Blue Devils. Two very impactful players last season. Murphy had 502 yards, 3 touchdowns last season. Harvey, 391 yards, 4 touchdowns last season. You'll lose even some more players. Amarian Granger and Jordan Bly each had at least 50 catches last season. Granger actually had 213 and a touchdown, while Bly had 52 and on 13 catches and 1 touchdown last season. All those guys, fairly solid contributors in their own right, are all gone out of this wide receiver room. But with no notable losses in the tight end room, we dive on into the pass catching group for the Monarchs this season, and it looks like this. Kelby Williams will be coming back. Second leading receiver last year at 451 yards and 2 touchdowns. And your team leader in receptions by quite some margin here, 43 catches and 445 yards for the third leading receiver. That is Isaiah Page. So you are going to be seeing him coming back, and he very likely can be that leading receiver for the team this year. If not, Kelby Williams can definitely be that as well. Dominic Dutton will also be back here to this team. He had over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is tied for the team lead with Javon Harvey last season. Miles Alston does come back, and what do you know? You do get another transfer here coming in. He is over from the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's Deontay Vines, who's projected to play a starting role here out of the wide receiver room. And of course, you got to talk about the tight end room. Jalen Butler and DJ Chandler are back, while Pat Conroy is a Merrimack transfer that's projected to play some big minutes here for this offense in 2024. Now, I said we would talk about the offensive line because, look, Grant Wilson, 291 yards, 131 carries, 130 carries even. You figure his stats would be a little bit higher than that, but yes, sack yardage is included in that, and Grant Wilson got sacked 62 times last season. Okay, that's the amount of sacks that this offensive line allowed. I actually lied a little bit. Grant Wilson only got sacked 52 times last year, but even that number alone, you don't include the 10 times that Jack Shields got sacked. There's no better way to put it. This was probably the worst offensive line in college football last season, and it loses some of its better pieces. Xavier Black is gone due to graduation, and Chris Chernak is gone through the transfer portal. So the offensive line room, you have to see improvement this season. What guys do you got in this room that can help you improve? Well, Stephon Dubose-Byrne, Santana Saunders, Elijah Hoskin, Martin Woodsma, hopefully I'm saying that name right, and Skylar Grant are all back in the offensive line room, while you do get some guys in through the portal to help improve by any means necessary what this offensive line was last season. Zach Barlev, Rick Moore, and Colin Henrik enters. And that is where this offensive improvement starts. You need this offensive line to get better. And look, while the run game still was pretty solid last season, you're going to need the offensive line to improve in this run protection, especially improve in pass protection. That is vital, vital, vital. Grant Wilson probably could have had 2,500 yards last year. He maybe could have had 400 or 500 rushing yards last season, and this offense could have scored a lot more points. Old Dominion could have been maybe an 8-9 win team last year if the offensive line was better. Now, obviously, that is a big if, and we're diving into all sorts of hypotheticals there. But that is where this starts with the offensive improvement in 2024. Grant Wilson's going to give you solid quarterback play. I like the transfers they brought in the running back, wide receiver, and even that tight end room when Pat Conroy comes in. If the offensive line does not improve, at least in some facet, this offense I don't think is going to get much better this season as well. That is a huge part to the improvement of this team in order for them to make a bowl game again in 2024. Now, defensively, honestly, in a lot of ways, fairly solid last year, especially that third down conversion percentage number. That's not a terrible number by any means. But you still got to see improvement out of the secondary. The pass defense just wasn't overall that great last year. And while the rush defense overall was pretty good, it was the pass defense that allowed way too many big plays, way too many touchdowns, and let this defense down and lost them some games that they were in. Most notably, that Western Kentucky game in the postseason last year, where Austin Reed and company just kind of lit it up during the second half there of that game. Defensive front, though, we have to talk about that first before we can get to the secondary. We'll start out with the defensive line, and you lose a couple guys here out of this position grouping through the transfer portal. Devin Brant Epps is gone. He had 20 tackles last year. And Jalen Satchel had 15 tackles. You tack on a sack from last season. So two fairly impactful defensive linemen are gone through the portal. And Jaleel Taylor, well, that's going to be a guy that you're going to see leave due to graduation. 25 tackles for him last year as a defensive tackle, and I should say, a fairly high impact player gone as well. You do get a lot of your pretty solid guys coming back, though. Denzel Lowry, Chris Trinidad, Amori Morrison, and Cole Daniels all return. Now, there is an asterisk next to this guy's name because honestly, it was really confusing to me. So he is on the roster, he is on the spring roster, he's on the Arled's depth chart, everything of that nature. But Jalen White McLean, unless there's another Jalen White McLean out there that played for Old Dominion that I'm not aware of, got signed by the Kansas City Chiefs. But to everything that I could tell, he very well is probably going to end up playing college football this season. So please, Monarch fans, let me know in the comment section down below if Jalen White McLean is going to be playing football for the Monarchs this season, because if that is true, that's a huge piece of the defensive line that is coming in. He's very athletic, has got some great hands, and he'll be a huge piece of the defensive line if he is playing this season. If not, you'll roll with those four guys as well as some other depth pieces and a transfer portal piece in Ricardo Williams Jr. that enters this program. Linebacker room, well, there were three guys that had triple-digit tackles for this team last year. Two of them are gone. One of those is Wayne Matthews III, off through the portal, 135 tackles, 3.5 sacks. By the way, that 135 didn't even lead the team. We'll talk about someone who did in just a little bit. And Sayed Stevens is gone as well due to graduation. So no more college football for him. He had 17 tackles last year. This is the guy that if you're a Monarch fan, especially if you're a fan of defense, you got to get excited about. Jason Henderson is coming back. And no, I'm not making this stat line up. He had 167 tackles last season, led the team in sacks with 4.5, and just overall is one of the more impactful players you're going to see across any defense in the entirety of college football. He'll be joined by Mario Thompson, Koa, now Tala, EJ Green, and Jaleel Colbreth in that linebacker room. But Jason Henderson, I mean, just what a player, what a leader. He's going to be good for, at the very least, 120 tackles this year. Highly impactful player coming back to the Old Dominion defense. Defensive back room, let's talk about it. Nolan Johnson is gone out of the cornerback room due to the NFL. You'll see him playing on Sundays. 38 tackles, 6 passes defended, 1 interception last season. So you'll see him gone. And Lamarion Jones has entered the portal. 60 tackles, 7 passes defended. He led the team in 7 passes defended, tied for the team lead, I should say, last season. And a ton of guys gone through the portal out of the safety room. Sean Asbury, Terry Jones, who also had 100 tackles last year, and Taj Ra'el, your 3rd, 4th, and 5th leading tacklers, respectively, all with at least 4 pass defended and 84 tackles gone off of last year's team. So, okay, that's some really good production that you have to try to fill in. However, Rashad Reason is that other defensive back that led the team in pass defended with 7 last year, and Keandre Harris will be back in the cornerback room as well. Quadrion Miles and Angelo Rankin Jr. do enter through the portal as well to give this cornerback room some depth that it lost with Johnson and James. And in the safety room, Ashton Whitner, Mario Easterly, and Jeremy Mack Jr. all return. But again, with a lot of production needing to be filled, you dove into the transfer portal. You got Patrick Smith-Young, you got Jerron Manning, you got Will Jones, and all 3 of those guys probably going to end up being starters, if not see very significant playing time for the Monarch defense this year. And hey, kickers are people too. You know we love to show them some love. Ethan Dwayne is gone as the primary punter, so Ian Brandt is back, while Ethan Sanchez returns to be that primary place kicker for the Monarchs this season. Defensively, again, a lot of talent is gone, especially out of that defensive backfield. Defensive front, losing Wayne Matthews is a huge piece. You still have Jason Henderson coming back, still some solid pieces on the defensive front, and the portal pieces might need some time to fill in, but I think ultimately will find themselves a pretty good role here. And overall, this defense still should see some solid play here in 2024. But now we take a deep dive into the schedule, and it looks like this for the Monarchs. Any game that's underlined before we dive on into the colors will be a home game, and any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game in green, now we get to the colors, is a game that I think the Monarchs should easily be able to win. Any game in yellow will be a close competitive one, but the Monarchs still able to win that one. Any game in red is a loss. We dive into the non-conference slate. They got 2 Power 4 teams, no FCS team on the schedule from the Monarchs. I do believe that they will go on the road and lose to the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, South Carolina is overall a team this year that returns a ton of talent. Ultimately, I see not doing that well record wise, but you can't argue with the returning talent. Yes, they lost some big pieces through the portal, but enough returning talent is there for South Carolina to be a dangerous team this year, and I just see Old Dominion losing that one. But I do see them beating the East Carolina Pirates, a team out of the American that I just see struggling this year after they lost a ton of really, really good talent there in 2022. 2023 was a struggle. I think 2024 will also be a struggle, and the Pirates lose to the Monarchs there in week 2. Now you move on to the week 3 game against Virginia Tech, and there's some interesting history between these two programs. So let's take you back here to 2022. Old Dominion beats Virginia Tech. A huge upset that sent shockwaves through the college football landscape. Not necessarily that Virginia Tech was a big powerhouse or a ranked team or anything like that. It was just a pretty big win. It was a huge win for this Old Dominion program, a big loss for the Virginia Tech program. But now you enter last season, Virginia Tech beats Old Dominion. They beat them by 19. Well, they're playing again this year. They are back on the soil where Old Dominion beat them in 2022. And it very well could happen again this season. However, there are a couple things going against Old Dominion this year. One, Old Dominion again lost a ton of talent through the transfer portal. And two, Virginia Tech is going to be a player in the ACC championship game this year. Kyron Drones is back. A ton of other phenomenal offensive pieces, including that running back room, most notably Bashal Tootin. A lot of good wide receivers, a lot of good defensive pieces. It should be one of the best defenses in the ACC. Virginia Tech and Brent Pry is going to have everything figured out this year, and I don't see a repeat of 2022 happening here. Old Dominion beats Virginia Tech. Or no, sorry, I had that backwards. I'm thinking in 2022 terms. Virginia Tech beats Old Dominion, and the Monarchs fall to 1-2. I also think they fall to 1-3 here when they lose to the Bowling Green Falcons. Hey, look, Bowling Green going to be a very talented team out of the Mid-American Conference this year. Some really good wide receiver transfers are coming into couple with Connor Bays, like a former Power 4 quarterback at Missouri and Indiana. Coming back to that program, Terrion Stewart is back. Some really good defensive pieces, especially after your first road game here, or your first road game. My apologies, your first bye week, then going on the road to play the Bowling Green Falcons. I think it's going to be a tough one for you guys to win. I see Bowling Green being able to pull that one out. So you go through non-conference play 1 and 3. You enter conference play, and it really doesn't get much easier for you. I don't know why I have such a hard time talking today. You got to go on the road and play the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Now, Coastal Carolina, we know they lost a lot of talent last year, most notably Grayson McCall. He's at NC State. Some good defensive pieces, some good wide receiver pieces. But they're still going to be a really good team this year. Ethan Vasco is a very notable piece of the quarterback position that I think is going to give them some really solid play. You still return some good weapons in the running back room. Wide receiver room still has a lot of talent in it, even with all they lost. Defensively, some good transfers are coming in. And overall, while I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Beck as a head coach, you can't deny the talent that his squad has. And Coastal Carolina should still be one of the better sides in the Sun Belt Conference this season. And then I do think you also drop this one on the road to the Georgia State Panthers. Now, look, I have said it for however many videos Georgia State has been in, right? I just do not see Georgia State being that great of a team this season. But right now, Old Dominion is on a 3-game losing streak. You got to go on the road. It's always tough to get your momentum back on the road compared to at home. And it's not like Georgia State is devoid of talent. I mean, Zach Gibson is a former Power 4 quarterback that comes in. You get some really good talent transferring in the running back room on the offensive line. Defense does return some pretty solid pieces. I just seeing it being a struggle year for Georgia State, but they're going to be able to pull off some wins, and I think they pull off this one. And hey, that losing streak, I do think extends right there to 5 games because Texas State is going to be a wildly talented team this year. That offense exploded under G.J. Kinney last season, and if you thought it was good last year, wait till this year where I think it's going to be even better. You got Jordan McLeod coming in at quarterback. Some phenomenal transfers come in there. Defensively, yes, it was a struggle for him, but that side of the ball should see its improvements this season. Bring in some good transfer portal pieces. I'm very high on this Texas State Bobcat program, and I think they will beat the Old Dominion Monarchs there at home. So, hey, you can't even rebuild your momentum back at home. And then you get another tough game after a short week at home against the Georgia Southern Golden Eagles. Well, I think you're going to be able to win this one here. Georgia Southern has a couple pieces, especially in that secondary. that just need to find their role, just need to find ways to improve, need to find ways to gel. But overall, guys, Georgia Southern's still going to be a solid team this year. I just like Old Dominion and Grant Wilson and what they have weapon wise offensively in the wide receiver room and the running back room to take it to this Georgia Southern defense that overall I think will be pretty solid, but it won't be enough to slow down this Old Dominion offense. And I think Old Dominion picks up a huge crucial win at home against Georgia Southern there to sort of revitalize the energy within this team and revitalize their season. But you have 4 very tough games coming up here. It can go downhill fast. I think you'll lose this one to the Appalachian State Mountaineers. And after this week, there probably is no perfect time for a bye week. In my opinion, the way the schedule's set out, you've already lost hope out on a bowl game after losing to App State, and I don't need a big explanation for this one. Joey Aguilar is back. A lot of really good wide receiver pieces. Yeah, you lost Nate Noel, but still some good running back pieces such as Kanye Roberts. Defense is going to be extremely talented this season, and App State could be one of, if not the best team in the Sun Belt Conference this season. So that is a loss for Old Dominion, but you get the bye week here. But again, 2 very tough teams coming up. JMU, even though they lost every major contributor, at least it seems that way, from last season, and their head coach, Kurt Cignetti, is off to go coach the Indiana Hoosiers. Bob Chesney is still a really, really good young head coach coming over from Holy Cross. They were one of the best FCS teams last year. James Madison is going to be bringing in some solid talent through the portal, and I think they're still going to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt Conference this season. But Old Dominion is going to be able to get the win here against the Marshall Thundering Herd. Marshall is a team that, look, you have a couple of position groupings that are going to be revamped through the portal here this season. And the position groupings mainly in that wide receiver room. Look, I'm not panicking about Cole Pennington at quarterback, but there are going to be a couple games this year where Marshall just slides and where Marshall can't seem to get a lot figured out. I think this is going to be one of them. Old Dominion wins that one. And look, a lot of really, really good talent on Arkansas State, but I think they use that momentum. They get the big road win at the end of the season. Arkansas State could be trying to push for a spot in the Sun Belt Championship game, but I think Old Dominion's able to win that one. Just kind of have a feeling about that one. So overall, 4-8. I still think Old Dominion has enough pieces to be competitive, but look, if things don't fit in well and this team isn't playing well, the offensive line doesn't improve, the defense can't fill their gaps, this is a tough schedule, and this season could go downhill really, really fast. They could go as worse as 2-10 this season. But overall, I like a lot of the pieces here. Not enough to get to a bowl game with this schedule, but enough to be competitive and still a fairly solid team out of the Sun Belt Conference. It's going to be one of those situations where their record probably isn't going to be what this team actually is. But I got them falling short of a bowl game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video where we talk about San Jose State Spartans. Goodbye.